We're live. Hello, everybody. I have to check myself for those of you from my audience watching. I have to check myself and not automatically go into podcast host mode here. But I'm super excited to be joined by two fellow authors. Darcy and Melissa and I are all three of the 50 authors as part of a Kindle flash sale happening this week. And so we're here to just talk to you a little bit about our experience, our books, get you hyped up to go, spend $6.93 and change your life on 50 books. And so, Darcy, why don't you kick us off? Tell us a little bit about the book and the sale and, who it's for and all the things.
Sure. Yeah. Well, thank you for hosting us here, Angie. Appreciate it. And it is always nice to see other authors. I am Darcy Eichenberg. I run a company called Red Cape Revolution. And my book that is currently part of this Kindle package is called Red Cape Rescue, Save Your Career Without Leaving Your Job. And I have it here. It's over my shoulder. And it's a guide for when you've had a successful career, but then you hit that road bump and something is off, whether that's something that happened internally, maybe something that's happening from the external world, and you feel like your only choices are give it all up, I've got to find a new job, I've got to retire. And the truth is those things are hard. So what is it that you actually have control of in between? So I like to think of it as a guide to taking back control of your life at work. So that's my book, Red Cape Rescue.
So one of the really fun things about this whole Kindle flash sale is getting to meet each other. Mm-hmm. And it's really interesting to see who Robbie, by the way, for all of you out there, Robbie Samuels does help people launch books, has been hugely helpful to me. He hosts this flash sale. It's interesting to see who he puts together because, I spent years in the career coaching space and now coach more in leadership and executive and team building, but there's some definite common themes because my book is Scary Good, Discovering Life Beyond the Sunday Scaries. And if you are one of the average Americans experiencing the Sunday Scaries 36 times a year, which, by the way, by the time you take off vacation weeks and the Monday holidays basically means every Sunday, then it is probably a sign that you also then need Darcy's book. And so we're complementing each other here with common themes, because I agree, we have more control over our careers and over our work than we think. But a lot of times when one thing isn't working, we feel like we have to kind of change it all. So I love the dynamic of those two together.
And it's probably going to have synergy with, I know Melissa's work in innovation because really there are so many creative possibilities, but no one's teaching us these things. This is why we need books. This is why we need the chance to sit and absorb somebody else's idea and stories to be able to make it work for ourselves. So
I know, and that's literally, I'm sitting here thinking I feel like these stack on top of each other. So, for a cup of coffee, the three of us are going to change your lives. Melissa, tell us how you bookend everything here in the innovation part of the conversation.
Oh, I'm just delighted to be here with you, Angie and Darcy. So my name is Melissa Dinwiddie. My book that's in the Kindle flash sale is, and I've got a little graphic here as well, Innovation at Work, 52 micro. Oh, I guess you can't see it. I don't have the, I'll hold up the actual book. I don't have the right camera showing here. Innovation at Work, 52 micro experiments for brave leaders who want to unstick teams, spark ideas, and build what's next. And my ideal reader is a VP or a senior leader, although really it applies, the principles inside the book apply to really anybody, but VP, senior leader at a tech company, a SaaS company, really any kind of company can benefit from the principles in the book, but somebody who's been handed an innovation mandate. Basically, leadership has said, we need to be more innovative, and now it's their problem to figure out how. And I wrote the book because I kept hearing the same thing in conversations with leaders. They want transformation, but they can't pull people away from operations to get it. They just don't have the time. One person literally said to me on a phone call, I wish I could just download skills like Neo in the Matrix.
Where's the blue pill when you need it?
I don't have that ability. I wish I did. I would be a bazillionaire if I did, but I don't. So the book is The Next Best Thing. It's 52 micro experiments. Most are under 20 minutes that build innovation as a daily practice, not a one-time event. And it leads to less stagnation, faster decisions, more ideas that actually ship. And I've also included in the book as many ways to make the book as useful for readers as possible. I have protocols at the front of the book. I have lists of ways to find the right experiment for the right need, all at the front of the book. You can go through the book and use, one experiment per week, or you can use the book is divided into 4 sections based on my 3-part framework, Create the Impossible framework, plus Create the Impossible at the end of the book. So anyway, I've done everything I possibly can to make the book as useful as possible. So it's not something that you read and then shelve, but you'll actually use it every day, every week to build innovation as a practice, because innovation isn't a value. It's actually a practice.
It's an action.
Yeah.
And I like this idea that you can do it in a way. You're debunking the myth/excuse of I don't have time to innovate because I just have KPIs to meet, right? If you can't find 20 minutes a day to innovate, you got way bigger problems, and you probably need to call one of us.
I love the framing too of the micro experiment, because I know in a lot of my work with leaders, people want change. They can see the destination. It's like, yeah, we need to get there, but the pain and the steps of getting there is just so overwhelming. It's like,
right.
But to have that first little stone in the stream, that micro experiment, that one step, that 20 minutes, that one little habit, that sounds very actionable and very useful, because we're all under pressure to innovate, right? The world is changing around us. So if we don't, then what happens to all of us? So
yeah, would you rather retroactively innovate and reactively innovate, or get in front of it? And I'm actually curious, Melissa, I want to start with you, because I'm going to be the curious one here for a minute, because this is my book in the Flash Show is my first book. Both of you, this is your second time around. So I'm curious, Melissa, since we just dove into your book a little bit, I'd love to understand, like, how does this experience compare to the first launch, but then also how did the two books complement or are different from each other?
Yeah. So my first book, right up here, The Creative Sandbox Way. So when I wrote that book, I had a really different business model. I was B2C, and I wrote that book for individual creatives. And it took me probably at least a solid year after making the decision that I wanted to write a book to actually really getting started on making the book happen, because I had so much, my gremlins were just so loud. There was so much imposter complex. There was so much like, oh my God, what do I, whatever I have to say isn't nearly as good as what has already been written out there. And the hurdles just felt like Mount Everest. And so I had a lot of that to deal with. Thankfully, the book is kind of a lot about getting past hurdles like that in order to get to your creative work. And so I basically ate my own dog food in order to write the book. And I had a big birthday coming up. And so I promised myself that I would get the book done by the big birthday. And I made it happen. But it was really just psychologically, emotionally, it was hard. The second book, I knew how to get past that. And the second book, it was very much, whereas the first book was, it was like a gift to myself. It was like a gift to my younger self. The second book, Innovation at Work, was very much, this is a book that I want to write as a business book to be an incredibly useful tool for my ideal audience. So although, the gremlins are still there, I didn't have as much of the, oh, this book has to, the first book, I designed the cover. I did the interior design. I did all sorts of hand done illustrations on the inside. Innovation at work, my original vision, I was going to make 52 illustrations, one for each of the 52 micro experiments. But the bigger priority was to get the book done.
Yeah.
And so I let all of that go. There is one illustration in there. Actually, there's no hand done illustrations inside that I created, because I could not.
At some point, you had to not be your own bottleneck.
I could not be my own bottleneck.
Yeah.
And I actually had friends of mine who say, Melissa, why are there no illustrations? You're an artist. I want to see more of your art in there. And I'm like, you know what? The bigger priority was to get the book out there so that my ideal customers, my clients, could get value out of this book. So I didn't let the my gremlins drive the bus.
The art book is the next book.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, tell them to get on the wait list for the workbook. Right? Darcy, how about you? The two experiences and even how the two books like interact? Because I think it's, Melissa, what you just said is interesting, because I think there's some elements of like, who is the book for, that for me, I resonate with some of what you said about like your experience with the first book. So Darcy, I'm curious about your experience.
Yeah. I think with a lot of, books, that they reflect where we are in our journey, as an expert, as a counselor, as a helping profession. And so my first book was early on in my business, and I really undertook it to kind of have a goal of just having something published. And that was it. It was called Bring Your Superpowers to Work, Your Guide to Clarity, Confidence, and Control. And I, like many of you, I did it myself, back to front, and just said, done is better than perfect. I just wanted to have something out to help support my business, to help articulate some of the philosophies that I was coming up with. Then over time, you grow and you change and your ideas change. And I've always written. I have a weekly, now we call it a newsletter. For the longest time, no one wanted a newsletter, but sort of a weekly love letter to people who sign up for, my insider community is what we call it. And so there were always ideas that were coming out in there, things that I didn't share on social media, or things that are emerging from my day-to-day client consulting. And so actually during the COVID pandemic, I went out to my audience and I basically asked them a question. I said, what do you need right now? It's like, I want to be helpful, but I think what we've been doing, here in my insider community, is that useful now? And I expected to get lots of suggestions for tactics and working remotely and things. And really what I got was needed ideas to feel like we're in control. We just need to feel like we can see our way through. And from that, I started it wasn't quite a podcast, but it was a regular audio series. And it was all around these like small strategies of how you can take back control in what you think, what you say, and what you do. And at the end of that, I had a collection of ideas and responses to it and listens. And I'm like, this feels like it's a collection. It feels like it's a book and a roadmap. And so it decided if I was going to invest time in the next book, I wanted to do it with, at a higher level. So I talked to some publishers, ended up working with the folks at Page Two, who have a great reputation. And so it had also professional help along the way, which was as much of a learning experience for me compared to my first experience. Then, and even then with a done product, recognizing what would I do for the next one? What would I learn, about putting together your ideas, about sharing them and using it as a tool for your audience. So I think they're kind of night and day experiences. But I think to your point, Melissa, about the mindset, I think like letting go of your own personal judgment, like, is this good enough? Is this done? Is there more, better? It's like, no, there's a certain point where you got to use the clock. And it's like, this is it. And, out in the world and getting response. I know so much more now, about my book, about what works and where it could work better than I did even after all the research and pre-testing and everything we did. But getting it out was important, and it'll make whatever the next book, hopefully I'm blessed to be able to have the opportunity to write, all the better, hopefully.
Yeah, exactly.
Next book syndrome is a thing. I think it's like that. Remember, there was like next vacation syndrome after COVID. Everybody was like, go on vacation, plan the next vacation. I definitely feel next book syndrome. And my experience with my first book has been a little bit different for a few reasons. I've been in business for 8.5 years and finally got to the point of like, here's the book. But I started working on it like 5-6 years ago, to the point that like I went to a beach and I went and just like hashed out like 20,000 words of a chronology that essentially would have been a memoir about someone no one even knows exists, me. Right? Like, I have no name. Who am I? Also, I got yelled at for sitting on a beach with a laptop. My husband was like, what the heck did you do? You got sand in the computer. It was the whole thing. But anyway, and it took years and years for me, I think, to get to the relationship with the story, to figure out how to actually package it for somebody else. Because I had the memoir component for a long time and I tried to work it into different frameworks and things like that, but nothing really ever felt like the right thing. And then at the same time, for the last 4 or 5 years, Darcy, I've been doing what you mentioned, which is I write a weekly newsletter called Combating the Sunday Scaries. And last summer, sometime around June or July, the universe smacked me in the face and went, Angie, you're about to hit volume number 200. And I was like, oh, you moron. There's the cover of your book. And it was so amazing that I was able to take this, like, let's say chronology, life story, the memoir component of a book, and look at all of these themes that I've just been talking about over the last 5 years. And oh, guess what? They actually fit together really well, because all that experience is the reason I'm talking about all these themes. Mm-hmm. And it turned into kind of this like memoir part guide that to me is like, it doesn't have quite the framework as much in it, but it's a little bit like, look at the mess you can survive. And here's what you can learn from it, so that you can then go and take control, or then you can go and innovate and do something and take action, which I love that all of us also are sitting here going, at some point we just had to do the thing, right? Because you can think about the thing forever. You can edit and workshop and all the things forever, but at some point you just have to put it out into the world. And, I think all three of us hope others are better for that. So that was a little bit of kind of my experience with book number 1. But the big thing for me is I didn't want to go through the never-ending process of traditional publication and agents. And I have a very specific voice and I'm like, I don't want anybody to like, I wanted the control, but I didn't want to look self-published. So I did some things, I followed Robbie's framework. I had an author coach who helped with essentially how to not look and not really be self-published in a way. Mm-hmm. And the biggest thing I did was I actually hired a person to do the artwork and to do the internal layout. Because if I'd have tried to do that, we would still be on chapter 1.
Yeah. I mean, a book is an investment, whether, you have a traditional publisher or a hybrid publisher, you are your own publisher in many ways. And it is that learning journey. And, so much doesn't end when the book is done, right? Because
that's where it begins.
Now it's like, yeah, right. Now it is recognizing, it's like, my goal is you get it in people's hands as much as possible, and then open and read, and ultimately they all exist because we want to help somebody. And it's like, if there's one person who can pick up, and just skim the first chapter and go, that's interesting, tell me more, then that's a win. But it takes a lot to get there. And I think that, anybody who has done it, especially doing the first one, kudos to you, and then Melissa, for you kind of saying, hey, I want to do this differently. Like, I want to serve my audience differently, or my audience has changed. It takes a lot to recognize that and to move forward and get something done.
I honestly feel like writing it is the easy part. Now, that's also, I think writing from experience and knowledge is different than like if you're trying to write fiction and you have to like actually create and think up a whole world. But for me, writing was the easy part. Launching it is like, okay, I birthed this thing. And now it's like, how do I keep this baby alive? Which, by the way, is why we're all in this flash sale, which here comes shameless plug. For any of you out there who want to know how to find this thing, there are 50 books in here across like 5 different categories: business, personal growth. I can only remember those 2 because that is the categories that the 3 of us are in. And so if you want to know how to find it, this is my link. Melissa and Darcy each have the exact same link that is either Melissa or Darcy if you want to be able to go to their links. But that's how you can find all the resources in the flash sale. And every single book is either 99 cents or $1.99, which is not us being jerks. It's just our file size is too large to be 99 cents. That's how we know. And so that's part of the fun of this, is like to get to connect with other authors who are trying to do exactly what you just said, Darcy. I think is so important. Like if one person picks up this book and gets something out of it, it was worth it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think it's interesting too, and I forget this from time to time, but you can actually gift a Kindle book to somebody else. And I posted on my own LinkedIn today, the link, on Amazon, it tells you how to do that. But, often, especially for 99 cents or $1.99 or something, to be able to say, this book sounded like you, maybe you want to try it. And you don't have to have a Kindle to read a Kindle book. Any of your digital devices will do that. And I think a book is a generous offer, and I find I give lots of books as gifts, and I don't expect that. I don't pressure. It's not a book report. I don't expect you to come back and tell me what.
There is no test to make sure you finish it.
It's not a test, but it's a feeling, right? It's a path to the other side, to a new possibility. And again, even if you pick up and you skim, and like in my book, we've got charts and questions and things like that, and big headlines. It's just skim and like go, like that's of value. Those kind of realizations are of value.
Absolutely. Or like Melissa gave somebody the ability to, shameless plug for you, go buy it for your whole team and work on the habit together. Every week you could work on one area of innovation.
Yeah, my book works really well for teams.
Yeah.
There's
that was the strategy.
Each person on the team can lead a different micro experiment every week, or things like that. There's lots of different tips at the front of the book to tell you different ways to use the different experiments, and also each experiment has scale guidelines and tips for the complexity level in terms of whether a manager or a team lead or a director should be the one leading it. Many of them also have scripts to help you facilitation scripts, context adaptations, how to integrate them with existing processes, how to adapt them for remote. Most of them are adaptable for remote. A few of them are not. Like if you have to go walking outside or something like that, it's not going to work very well for remote. But so anyway, I tried to make it as
FaceTime each other. People, you can walk outside and FaceTime each other. There you go.
There you go.
There you go.
See, this is what's fun about being at a flash sale with other authors. I would not have met the 2 of you if it weren't for this, I don't think. Although Melissa and I do have a mutual connection, which is funny and just proves how small the world is. But it wouldn't have been, we wouldn't have gotten to sit down here and talk about why books change the world. Who was it that used to say everything I learned from a book? Isn't that somebody's quote? I said that in response to somebody else in the flash sales post about it. And I was like, I feel like somebody said this and I can't remember it, or maybe I'll just own it. And then
lots of things. I do think we undervalue books.
Yes.
I can listen to your point. You're saying people say they don't have time. It's like what is important to use your time on? I mean, how much TV are you watching? How much, and with audiobooks today, again, this is not an audiobook sale, but, my book's available on Audible. I'm sure there's plenty of others. Either get it at your library, the library can download. There are just no excuses for if you have something that you want more of, to not seek out. There's information that's out there for pretty damn cheap when you think about the cost of not learning the things that are
cost of not. Yeah.
Yeah, seriously.
And you make such a good point, Darcy, that it's a choice. right? You choose where you spend time. And it sounds to me that all three of us have kind of that common theme around take agency, make the choice, do the things. Because now this isn't something I will take credit for. Easy choice, hard life, hard choices, easy life. And these are great resources to just kind of help you lean into doing hard things now so that then you have more possibilities or easier things later. Darcy, you mentioned you do have audiobook. Melissa, do you have an audiobook yet?
I do not have an audiobook. I'm not planning on having an audiobook for this one. It's not really conducive to audio. Yeah.
I am hoping that while this is not part of the flash sale, sorry, Robbie, we're going rogue. Mine, I hope, will be out in June. So I am going to start recording it next week. So
fantastic. And Darcy, are you the voice for your audiobook?
Narrator, yes. Yes. It is always a fascinating experience to narrate your own books and to read your words back. And of course, that's when you've completed it after a while. So it's like, oh wait, I wrote that. That was not a good story.
Why did I say that? Okay, I'm preparing. Okay, so in other words,
you always need a really good editor and director to be able to coach you out of that. Let me just shift that a little bit. No, that's what's in the book.
I love it. Well, let me throw up our link one more time. Kindle flash sale. I threw my link in there because I knew it, and then I looked at it and realized I could have just thrown Melissa and Darcy at the end of that. For any of you who watched us live, thank you. Thanks for the two of you for coming and hanging out and just talking author talk with two strangers, but we're friends, which is the beauty of the flash sale.
That's right. Thanks, Angie, for making it happen, and appreciate meeting you all. And anybody who wants to find out more about the books, and go to the flash sale this week. Yep. You can find us. I'm sure we're all on LinkedIn. And
so to say, be sure to follow. If you're watching on one of our feeds, follow the other, because that's a huge support for all of us.
Yeah, thanks, Angie, for hosting us. This has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, this was super fun. And so keep in touch. You may see all of us again. Who knows? Read our books and let us know what wisdom you take away. So happy flash sale, everybody. Go get some knowledge. Thank you all. Have a great week, everyone.
Bye, all.
Bye.